Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about Liz Lochhead's play, Perfect Days. This is a play centered on the character Barbs Marshall, who is a late 30s Glasgow celebrity hairdresser who has largely chosen her career ahead of family. She's become very successful. She's she's fairly financially well off. She is well known among sort of celebrities, the media. She makes regular television appearances, etc., etc. She has a successful career by hairdressing standards. But she is not particularly personally fulfilled. She's not necessarily feeling excellent about the interpersonal relationships in her life, and she would like a baby. A sort of revelation that she gives us really from the beginning of the play. She is telling this story to Alice Inglis, one of her friends, whom she's doing Alice's hair. And basically, she tells this sort of extensive story throughout Act 1, Scene 1, about this guy that Barbs has been in a relationship with, and she wanted to have him impregnate her, not because she necessarily wanted to be with him, but because she wanted a baby. She felt that that would somehow sort of fulfill her. The problem is, in this story, that this guy who basically, like, they've been in a sort of developing relationship of sorts. Not formal, but informal. And he announces to her shortly before their trip to Paris, or maybe on their way to Paris, whatever it is, that he has met someone, he's in love with her, and so he's not going to sleep with Barbs. Which is the one thing she wants. She wants to have a baby. So basically, this is the gist of the whole play, right? Is Barbs sort of working through this experience of being moving toward sort of middle-aged, moving toward middle-age, whatever it is. She's 39, turns 40 in the play. Being this career woman who senses that her biological clock is ticking, etc., etc., and feels that her career no longer fulfills her, and that instead a family, particularly in the form of a baby, would be fulfilling for her. So she tries to have sex with various men for one reason or another. It does not work out. Eventually, she gets Brendan Boyle, who is her assistant? So he's her best friend, according to the character description, but he also works in the salon that Barbs co-owns. He's gay. So they're not going to have sex because he is not attracted to women, straightforward enough. But what she gets him basically to do is to they do their own version of sort of artificial insemination, where basically he ejaculates into a turkey baster, and she uses the turkey baster to attempt to inseminate herself. This is largely unsuccessful as well, as far as we can tell. But a lot of the play sort of revolves around this. And I feel like this was a very common sort of topic in this era, because this play premiered August 7th, 1998. I feel like in the 90s, this was a very common sort of thematic concern of women having careers versus women having families, and whether or not there was a way of sort of melding those two desires, or whether it was desirable to meld those two desires, things like this. These sorts of questions I feel like came up a lot in the 90s, partially because conservative media, especially like talk radio in the US, really sort of turned this anti-feminist lens on the question of high-powered women having careers, etc., etc. But you also get this through things like Carol Churchill's play Top Girls, which I don't remember what year it comes out, but I think it comes out in the late 90s as well, mid-90s maybe. And so this is a very sort of common theme. A lot of movies and stuff at this time are dealing with this idea. It is a big cultural anxiety, both from a feminist perspective and an anti-feminist perspective. And in some ways, Lochhead's play almost leans into this from a sort of anti-feminist perspective. This idea that women who chose their career over family would end up alone, they would be lonely, they would regret choosing their career over having a family, being a wife, being a mother, etc., etc. And Barb's is clearly in that kind of space. But one of the things that complicates that is that Barb's relationship with the family she does have, namely her mother, Sadie Kirkwood, is not especially positive, right? So Barb's has this notion that having a child is going to make her happier, is going to make her feel more complete, is going to be emotionally fulfilling, etc., etc. But, again, her relationship with her mother is a very tense one. Like, her mom genuinely does seem to be trying to help her out by, like, coming over to her house and cleaning her stuff, even though Barb's has said, please don't do that. I have somebody who comes in and cleans. I don't want you to do it. Sadie makes her this really, apparently quite hideous jumper or sweater, as we would say in the US, for her birthday. And Barb's feels like she has to wear it, even though it's clear to Sadie that Barb's does not like it. So there is this sort of interesting tension between that idealizing of the family, that sort of, that sense that the family is going to be fulfilling in the form of the child, etc., etc., and yet at the same time, the family that exists with the mother is not a source of fulfillment. It is in fact a source of anxiety and stress. And so you've got those two things sort of pulling against one another within the play, which I think really complicates this sort of idea, this notion that either people, women specifically, because of different gender dynamics that have historically kept women out of the workforce until the past, I don't know, less than a century, whatever it is, you know what I mean. This idea that women either can be happy just with a career, or they can be happy just with family, etc., etc., or that they can have both, whatever it is. These sort of simplistic alternatives are sort of broken apart here. They're not alternatives necessarily. They are competing forces that exist in uneasy tension with one another, right? So the answer is not Barbs would be happy if she had a child. She would be happy if she had family in which she played this sort of domestic maternal role, or the answer is not Barbs would be happy if she just focuses on her career, etc., etc. It is that both things risk being sources of stress, tension, upset, but both things also have the potential to be incredibly rewarding. This is the complication of perfect days.